I always feel sort of funny because the last time you were here, you didn't find my shoes. I wore my hip jacket for you, however.
You did?
Yes, you did.
Are you sure?
I thought I did.
What if one of rock's most powerful women was never meant to be tamed? Janis Joplin, a voice like gravel soaked in honey, a soul too raw, too real, too much for the world she was thrown into. Most people remember the music, the raspy laugh, the feather bows, the Southern Comfort bottle in her hand. But what they don't know, what they never really asked, is what storm she was carrying underneath all of that sound. This isn't just about the legend in tie-dye. This is about the woman behind the microphone, the heartbreaks, the rejection, the survival, and the night she cracked a bottle over Jim Morrison's head and changed how women in rock would be seen forever. Let's go back to where it started. Janis came up hard, Port Arthur, Texas, where conformity was currency and being different was dangerous. She was teased, mocked, bullied, called pig in high school, not for what she did, but for how she looked, how she was. But instead of shrinking, she got louder. She dove into blues. Bessie Smith, Odetta, Lead Belly, and let their voices become the armor for her own. She wasn't classically beautiful, and she didn't try to be. She was electric, a bolt of feeling that couldn't be ignored. And when she sang, it wasn't a performance, it was a revelation. But fame didn't fix the ache, it magnified it. She said it herself. Every night on stage, she'd give a piece of herself away. And when she went back to her hotel room, there was no one there to give anything back. She wasn't chasing applause. She was chasing love. Not fan mail, not drugs, not validation. Real love. The kind that made her feel seen, held, whole. And she never really found it. There were flings, lovers who stayed the night but never stayed. Leonard Cohen had one of those nights with her at the Chelsea Hotel. He turned it into a song, Chelsea Hotel, Number 2 Bianchi. To him, it was a story. To her, maybe it was the start of something real, until it wasn't. Then came Jim Morrison. By 1969, Morrison was already the rock god, magnetic, dangerous, the kind of man people called a genius even while he was tearing himself, and others, apart. His violence toward women wasn't a secret. It was a rumor people ignored, dismissed as rock star behavior. But Janis? She wasn't one to stay silent. They met at a party hosted by producer Paul Rothchild. At first it was sparks, flirting, electricity. People thought it might be the rock and roll pairing of the century. But then Jim got drunk, really drunk. He crossed the line, grabbed her hair, got in her space, wouldn't let her go. So Janis did what no one expected. She picked up her bottle of Southern Comfort and cracked it over his head. Not to be dramatic, not to be wild, to survive. But the media spun it differently. Crazy Janis, they laughed, out of control. But here's the thing. If a man had done it, they'd call him a badass. Same chaos, different labels. Jim Morrison was tortured. Janis was broken. Jim was a visionary. Janis was a mess. And that double standard, it carved her. She didn't just fight it in interviews. She fought it in action. When she learned that Bessie Smith, her idol, was buried in an unmarked grave, Janis paid for the headstone herself because she knew what it meant to be erased. She wasn't going to let that happen to someone else. And in doing so, she wrote her own legacy. When Janis died in October 1970, just 16 days after Jimi Hendrix, she became another member of the so-called 27 Club. The media called it a tragedy, but don't mistake her death for her story. She didn't fade, she detonated. Her final album, Pearl, released after her death, wasn't a goodbye. It was a love letter. Crybaby, Me and Bobby McGee, Mercedes-Benz, each one raw, real, and completely her. No filters, no polish, just Janis. And 50 years later, she still sings for the outcasts, for the ones who've been told they're too loud, too messy, too much. Janis didn't play to the crowd. She played for survival. She sang like it was her last chance to be understood, because sometimes it was. So now we ask, was Janis Joplin a rebel, a warning, a tragedy? Or was she something else entirely? Maybe she was the first woman in rock who dared to be everything, vulnerable, angry, sexual, soulful, without apology. And maybe the legacy she left behind isn't in how she died, but in how she never stopped daring to live on her own terms. Because when Janis opened her mouth, the world had to listen. And it still does. Every time a woman steps on stage and screams, not for attention, but for freedom, Janis is right there with her. And that's a legacy you don't bury. You pass it on.